Okay, let's go.
I'm Nicole Lee, and welcome back to You Never Know, where we talk about life, career, change, and the stories of people who have taken the unconventional road and embraced the unknowns. If you liked my content and podcast so far, remember to like, comment, or subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this to help me create more relevant content for you in the future. It means so much to me. Today's guest is someone who has never been afraid to speak her mind, even at a young age. She's a content creator, AI tech professional, and an avid financial investor. And it's someone who has built her presence online and off through addressing everyday issues that matter and for championing the aspirations and challenges of her millennial generation. Today, we're going to go deep into her story, from what made her find her voice to navigating public scrutiny and her dynamic experiences from investing to dating in her 30s. I'm super excited to be having this conversation today. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Jeraldine Phneah to You Never Know. Jeraldine, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Nicole.
Yeah, I remember that I met you about 2 years ago when I was still at the fintech startup.
Yes.
I hosted a dinner event and you attended. And then we also met each other again at another social event, which was quite fun.
Yes.
I only knew you more as an investor. And you actually shared a lot about your personal story as well, which I think would really resonate with a lot of people. So really grateful that you're here to share your story. Yeah, so maybe Jeraldine, for a start, you were born in Singapore.
Yes.
Tell us how you grew up.
So I had a bit of a slightly different childhood from some of my peers.
Okay.
But definitely not uncommon for our generation back then. So both of my parents were working. So I spent Monday to Friday with my grandparents.
Okay.
And basically grew up with them. So I'm really close to them, and I see my own grandparents as family members who are just as close as my own parents as well.
Okay.
I lived with them till I was 12 years old.
Okay.
And subsequently moved back to live with my parents. But we did remain very close. In fact, a couple of years I got a place near my grandparents again.
Oh,
so I
wow.
could be near them and visit. My grandpa was alive back then more often.
Right, so since you were a baby to 12 years old, you lived full-time with your grandparents.
How it works was like I would live with my grandparents from Monday to Friday.
Right.
And then on the weekends, I would live with my parents.
Wow, so you must have developed a really close and strong bond with them. So how did living with your grandparents affect you growing up?
There were a couple of benefits that it had on my life. Firstly, I felt that I was given a lot of freedom and space to really get to know myself, to explore my own interests. So after school, I would remember I'll be doing a lot of like art and craft, studying about topics that interested me, such as back then I was really interested in nature, the environment, and more.
Yeah.
And the second benefit it had for me was that I developed a close connection to elderly people.
Right.
So when I see an older person, like a senior citizen, I feel this sense of closeness towards them and fondness as well.
Yeah, I think that was your path or your journey to be more empathetic and compassionate to that group of people. And actually, just looking back, how your grandparents treat grandchildren are very different from how your parents treat children.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a bit softer and sometimes more endearing. So I think that experience was, really important and memorable for you. So my next question is, and Jeraldine, I actually realized only recently that you were talking a lot about public issues from a very young age. First of all, how old were you when you started talking about these issues? And why do you start talking about these issues in the first place? Because it's not very common for people to start that young, and women to also talk about these issues as well.
I feel that, okay, so first of all, to answer the first part of your question, I began talking about social issues that mattered to me a little bit more when I was 22 years old.
Okay.
Yep, around 21 or 22 years old. And I've always been interested in social issues. So volunteering was a big part of my life since secondary school, JC. I started off with volunteering in the neighborhood where my grandparents lived at, giving tuition to lower income students to help them. And then subsequently joining environmental NGOs to support what they're doing as well. So volunteering has been such a huge part of my life. However, I felt that volunteering is, while it's really important, it only plays, it's not the full solution to problems that we face.
Yeah.
And ultimately, policies need to evolve as well to make a much larger impact, which is why I started to write about issues that I cared about.
And the reason why I asked this is because even from my own experience, I didn't think much about some of these issues until I was much older. So, and it's not very common to actually speak out about these things. Was there something that happened in your life that sort of made you think, hey, I want to do something about things around me? Was there something in your life that sort of made you want to do that?
I feel that it might have been linked to my grandparents bringing me up, because growing up with them made me much more empathetic towards the elderly folk. And when I started to see issues like elderly having to work till a really old age in Singapore, something didn't feel quite right. At the same time, when I tried to discuss some of the social issues that I cared about with my peers, I realized not many of them were particularly interested in topics like this at that point in time in their lives. So I went online to share my views, hoping that I could connect with others who would be willing to hear my opinions, to share their thoughts, and to have constructive discussions together.
Yeah, and I get that. And I get that a lot of your friends and peers would not be, because it's not something that is very ingrained in our society to actually talk about these things.
Yeah,
right?
Perhaps they are probably passionate, but maybe at that point in time, they have not thought about it in great detail or would not like to discuss topics like that.
And I think that's something I really respect about you as well, Jeraldine, is I would say it's the also maturity at that time to sort of want to immerse yourself in these things and reflect on it, because it does take someone who's thinking deeper to actually think about how all these things affect different parts of society. So when you were 21, 22, what were some of the first few, topics or articles that you talked about?
I've covered quite a range of topics.
Yeah.
But because of my lack of formal work experience at that point in time, the types of topics that I could cover well were also not as diverse. So I mostly wrote about the education system. And one of the more popular posts that I wrote about was a comparison between neighborhood schools and elite schools in Singapore, and sharing my perspective on the types of resources that both schools have access to.
Right. So are you from a neighborhood school or elite school?
I went to a slightly, I would say, slightly diverse secondary school where we had all streams inside the school. So that exposed me to a wide range of people. And subsequently, I went on to a JC that was one of the top few JCs in Singapore.
Right. So what made you write about neighborhood versus elite schools?
Yeah. So when I was in JC, back then I had a boyfriend. And, he was actually the person who opened my eyes.
Interesting.
Because there was one day in the class where he would ask me a question about okay, can you count the number of students who live in HDB?
Why would he ask you to do that?
Yeah, so but back then I didn't ask why, right? I just counted. And I realized that the number of students who lived in HDB was not a significant number and was very different from the general Singapore population.
Right.
Questions that he asked me and the discussions that we would have together on our way back from school prompted me to think a little bit more about life and the different types of resources that one has access to that would shape one's performance academically and life beyond that as well.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I think he probably came into your life to make you think about about those things, right? I think, it's very interesting because at that time when you're at that age, you don't really think that much about all these differences within your schools, within your class, and within your neighborhood even. And the differences, between different types of schools. And I think that made you reflect and introspect. So is that also why, or tell me why, equal opportunity, things like career fulfillment, things like elderly care, like why do these topics mean so much to you?
So I'll talk about the elderly one first.
Yeah.
During the last few years of my grandma's life, she could not really walk very well. So she would stay at home and mostly watch television. Back then, I noticed that she was not fully enjoying radio and television.
Right.
Because she only spoke Hokkien, whereas the radio and television language for the Chinese media was mostly in Mandarin at that point in time. So I felt that it wasn't giving her a good quality of life. And that, inspired me to start this petition to reintroduce Chinese languages such as Cantonese, Teochew, Hokkien on local media.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a lot to do with my, I would say, family and the experiences that I see them go through that shapes the way I think and the way I act and the way I, do things. Yeah.
I think that's very fascinating, actually quite admirable, because you, based on your experiences, personal experiences that you have had with your family, you actually use that to try and create a different reality for your family and your grandparents, which is something that not many people do, and it takes a lot of courage. What about equal opportunity?
That was influenced by some earlier experiences I had in my teens. As I shared earlier, I was giving tuition to students from lower income families.
Yeah.
And they would share with me that, hey, their teachers in school, according to them, weren't particularly encouraging towards them. And at the same time, I noticed that they were really smart and they were capable of so much more.
I get it, yeah.
But at the same time, because of family circumstances, perhaps they didn't have access to tuition that could perhaps support some of the learnings that they had as well. So the circumstances that they had to deal with were so much more different from, someone who came from a different background as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt that, hey, it's important to uplift and empower some of these students. Definitely there are those who can overcome obstacles and work their way up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are many more who perhaps have lost confidence in themselves or are unsure about what are the opportunities that are available out there.
Yeah. It just makes me wonder because, tuition is something that's very common in Singapore and in many parts of Asia that value academic success.
Yes.
And I absolutely dislike tuition, and I only had tuition very late on. But it just made me remember, do you think that the type of school that you're in affects a lot of your self-belief?
There was this video that I watched by Ho Kwok Ping, who is the founder of Banyan Tree.
Yeah.
And he says that those who make it believe that they deserve it, and those who do not make it also believe that they deserve it.
I get it.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
That is one of the effects that I've observed because when a student is streamed into maybe a normal stream or something early on, or maybe they face setbacks in their pursuit of academic excellence. For example, having to repeat a year, or maybe not being able to make it to a university of their choice. Sometimes I observe that it takes a toll on their self-esteem because society values their grades so much. So therefore, these students have internalized that, oh, if I didn't do well, it's 100% my fault.
Yeah.
Or it's my grades equals to my self-worth.
Yeah, which is totally not true.
Yes, it's not true.
It's totally not true, which is why part of why I'm doing this podcast as well is to show people that a lot of times it's your academic success does not determine the success of your life, right? Because there's so many things that you can do that may not be part of the system that you grew up with, but it could be something more creative that you didn't have the chance or the opportunity to do it too.
Yeah.
But I think that it's very good, that regarding that statement that you mentioned, Mr. Ho Kwon Ping talked about, it is actually about the thoughts in your head, right? And the belief that you tell yourself.
Self-belief is so important.
Super.
So when people ask me about applying for jobs, very often they focus on the techniques that you need to use during crafting a good resume or the interview. But I feel that self-belief is the first step. Because if you don't believe in your own potential, you might not put yourself out there for the best opportunities.
100%.
And that would also show up in the way that you carry yourself in interviews as well.
Very true. So true. I wanted to touch a bit deeper about the effects of speaking out in public. Because even for this podcast, the very thing that was holding me back from starting was the fear of what people might think of this, about my views and about being seen. So talking about these social issues in public, how was that for you? How was your experience in terms of people responding to what you've put out?
It's definitely challenging to discuss topics like social issues on a public forum. That's because when people read it, their interpretation of the text is influenced by so many things. It's influenced by their mood at that point in time. It's influenced by, their interpretation of it. They could be really tired and then miss out on some key
their
points.
Upbringing.
It could be influenced by their upbringing, their social environment, and all this forms a different perspective. So definitely writing about social issues has pushed me to try to be as balanced as possible, to acknowledge multiple viewpoints. I've gotten better at it from when I started, but definitely I'm not perfect.
Of course.
And there will be incidents where I sometimes maybe perhaps could have worded my opinions a little bit better, or my perspectives in a way that is more positive. Yeah.
Were there any responses or reactions that were totally unexpected for you?
There are quite a few incidents whereby I felt that the comments I received were not as positive. And I guess these are all learning experiences for me, because when I receive a criticism, very often because people are typing it online, it could be laced with personal attacks. Then a lot of these comments would be about your looks, or it could be very harsh. So I try my best to be positive, to look at everything and try to find what's the main point that they are concerned about, and filter out all the negativity. And then if I feel that they have taken the time to write to me, I do my best to also respond sometimes in a way that I feel is a kind way to them. So that means to say acknowledging where I agree with them, sharing my views, or clarifying any misunderstandings that they might have, and then ending on a positive note of wishing them a good day, or thanking them for making this time to share their perspectives as well.
I can imagine at 21, 22, when someone tells you these kind of comments that it must be quite hard to accept. How drastic was that in terms of receiving these kind of comments for you, in terms of your emotional state?
I feel no one ever gets used to
it. True.
Yeah. Even for many of my established creator friends, they still get impacted by the negative comments sometimes.
Yes.
And it's unavoidable because we are social beings.
Yes.
And we do crave, to some degree, positive interactions with others. So when we receive such negativity, especially when they're unkind, it can be quite a lot to take. For me, at a young age, dealing with this is definitely not easy. But what I focused on was, number one, what I could control, which is my responses. I do my best to be kind.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I also work on myself and my self-esteem such that I can build a stronger barrier.
Yes, I think through this whole experience, you would have grown a lot in terms of emotional mastery, because at the end of the day, you realize that you can't please everybody. That's number one. Not everybody will agree with you.
We try to look at things from a lens of compassion.
Yeah.
At the same time, for us as creators, it's also important for us to be responsible.
Yes.
And the words we say sometimes do carry weight.
Of course.
So on my end, I'm constantly striving to be a better version of myself.
100%.
To think about how I can express my views better. I don't think I'm perfect, and sometimes I beat myself up for not being able to do it flawlessly all the time.
Yeah.
But I try to extend compassion to myself also, to treat it as a learning journey and aim to get better each time I encounter setbacks.
Yeah, I think that's so important, having compassion for yourself, that you cannot be perfect and that maybe your why is bigger than these comments that come in. What makes you keep going?
Actually, when I think about content creation, I feel it's a form of service. A form of service to the audience that we are writing for or creating content for. So what really keeps me going are those messages that share about how I've helped them, be it being able to get a higher salary, providing encouragement to them, helping them to start a fitness routine and healthy habits in their lives, or even being able to switch fields to the technology sector as well. I save all these messages. So sometimes when I'm super down and I think about like just quitting, I look at all these messages and they give me the hope to continue, because I know that maybe I will not make everyone happy with the content I put out, but perhaps there could be some people out there who have benefited from what I've shared out there.
Yeah, I think as long as one or two people actually really benefit from it, that makes it all worthwhile. Who would you say you're writing for?
I started off as a creator, writing for the general public. And although I've since tried to focus a bit more on millennials, Gen Zs, because I'm around the age group and can relate to them, I do notice that a lot of my audience are older as well.
Okay.
And they do see value in the content that I put out as well.
Okay, so people who are of different ages but perhaps are going through the challenges that you're also going through in different stages of their lives, right?
Yes.
And could probably resonate with what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
For example, I shared about my experience being laid off. And while there are young people who have been let go because of all the tech layoffs, there are also older people who have been impacted. And I feel that my content could be of value to them as well, because ultimately it's about how do you bounce back, not blame yourself for a company decision, and then get back on your feet and try again.
Yeah, I can completely resonate with that. It's as well, very big part of my why I'm writing as well online is to share a little piece of you so that people know that they're not alone and that they have the inspiration and the motivation to go on in their own path as well, right? What would you say are the biggest lessons you've learned from writing in public?
I feel that having courage is key.
Yeah.
Courage to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And put your thoughts and opinions out there. You started off by saying that I'm unafraid. It's not true.
I was thinking you might say something about that.
Yeah, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Even until now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think whenever I write a post, I reread it quite a few times.
I get it.
And then I stress about, if someone could read it and feel hurt. Because ultimately, what I want is to create a positive impact and not hurt anyone's feelings.
Yeah. So courage, your biggest lesson is courage. Yeah. And
courage also comes in another form.
Yes.
Courage to be accountable.
Yes.
So when you make mistakes, sometimes the response is not great. And it's important to reflect on that and apologize if needed. Right. So apology is not, saying sorry is not just a word. No. It is showing people that you recognize.
Yes.
Like you have fallen short in some ways.
Yes.
And commit to being a better version of yourself. Yes. So that takes courage as well, because sometimes when there are less positive comments, the instinct inside is to run.
Yes.
And rather than running, it's really important to just face it. Yes.
But I have another perspective to share as well. I mean, because it takes so much for anyone creating or writing content out there and putting it out, because most people aren't. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I think that in general, in more conservative Asian societies that don't really speak out as much, that it's also progress seeing people speak out and accepting that no one is perfect, and that it's not even about making mistakes. It's about accepting that there are different views to different things, and that everyone can have a different view, and it's okay to coexist in a world that there are different views about different topics. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I think what you're doing is great. I wanted to talk a bit about investing.
Yes.
Because when we first met, that's how I knew you as an investor. And I think that one thing that struck me was that you are very young, you are very knowledgeable, and you have this willingness to learn and ask questions. And at many of the events that we do, there are a lot of men in the room, and I think you're the one or two women in the room as well. And so how did you start your journey? Why do you get so interested in finance? Because you already amassed quite a bit, even when you're 30, which is a very big achievement. How do you get there?
I feel that investing is something that is interesting to me, because my father did share with me before that simple concepts like if you put money in the bank only, sometimes the interest rate can't keep up with inflation, and therefore it's important to invest it as well. So when I attend events, the goal is to learn from the other attendees, to learn from the speakers. And I try to put myself out there and to ask questions, even if it's scary to ask them, or even if sometimes I might feel that the question is basic. Because I think, as I shared with one of the attendees at that point in time, I think ego cannot be eaten, but returns can.
True. Yeah. True. Okay, so you basically felt from a young age as well that you had to be financially independent.
I would say yes, because being financially independent is not just about having a lot of money. It's also about, it's more about what you can do with it.
Tell me more.
How you can provide for the people that you love deeply. How you can have options and choices to take career breaks if things get too stressful. And how you can be that safety net for the family that you love.
Was that your driving force? What was your main driving force for? And I say that because a lot of people, especially women, based on observations, studies, who are not equipped with managing their money and to grow their wealth in a way that allows them to do the finer things in life. What was your trigger?
I guess natural curiosity is one of them.
Okay.
And the other one was recognizing that autonomy is important to me. And the way to have autonomy is to have an emergency fund. And so that's something that I tried to build. I'm very grateful for being able to be where I am today. You know, as I think back about it, it's not just me alone, right? Of course, there were trade-offs and sacrifices that I had to make on my side. But at the same time...
Such as?
I would say that, you know, taking time to really master a skill.
Right.
Which contributed to this. But what's more important as well is the support I got along the way. So I'm so incredibly lucky to have bosses who gave me opportunities to meet leaders who continue to stay in touch with me even though I've left the company, to guide me on my career journey, and to meet wonderful customers who believed in me and who supported me.
Right.
So these are all the, you know, I would say blessings that I had. They came in the form of other people.
So what you're trying to say is the hard work, the opportunities that you were given as part of your day job helped you then to save, amass enough so that you could then invest after that.
Yes.
And tell me more about, or what would you say to people who are currently having a salaried job, have never invested before, young or at different stages of their life? What would you say to them to be able to start their investment journey?
I feel like education is the first step. I mean, before the topic of investing, I think the foundation of personal finance needs to be there. So being able to understand concepts like the importance of having an emergency fund, you know, being able to adopt methods that could be very effective, such as the pay yourself method when it comes to saving money.
Pay yourself?
Yes.
Meaning?
So how it works is that your salary goes into a main account and then you pay yourself an allowance from there that you spend.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that's one of the interesting personal finance tips that I adopted early on.
Okay.
By reading many of the online forums and blogs out there where many other creators were generously sharing what has worked for them.
Okay.
If I have to give a recommendation for someone, it would be a book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Okay.
I think that's a fantastic book that covers the basics of personal finance, the mindset on how to think about money, and how you can actually build a solid foundation for your financial future.
Right. So that's interesting for me. You put your salary in an account and then you pay yourself whatever that you need to so that you don't overspend.
Yes.
Right. Cool. Okay, that's a good tip.
It's like giving yourself pocket money.
Right. So then you invest the rest of it.
Yep. I either put it in a high interest savings account or I invest it.
Okay. I wanted to talk about dating and relationships. And you know, we met over coffee the other day and you were also expressing about how it can be quite challenging to be dating in your 30s. Do you feel any societal pressure to sort of get together with someone?
For me, what's the most important thing is finding the right person. Because I've seen how when others end up with the wrong person, or in my past experiences where the fit was not right, the negative impacts it can have on someone's life.
Yes.
Because relationships are a very key part
100%.
of our lives.
Yes.
So finding the right fit is really critical.
Right. So as a person now who is successful and has her own life, do you feel like there is even a need to have a partner?
I feel that having a right partner is such a wonderful addition to one's life.
Yeah.
Because when good things happen, the joy is doubled.
Yes.
And when bad things happen, your suffering is half because you have someone to share it with. And building a relationship is such a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like coming together, working together to co-create something that is meaningful and lasting.
I love that.
I would love to have that experience. At the same time, I'm aware that there are a lot of things that are outside of my control as well. So if eventually I do not end up finding the right fit, then I'm happy also.
Great. I think that's a very great approach. And you rather walk alone than to walk with someone that it's not the right fit for you. Right? I've got some rapid fire fun questions for you. And yeah, you can answer in your own words, of course. So the first one is if there was one thing that you could change about Singapore and one thing you could keep, what would they be?
Wow, there are a lot of things I want to keep.
Go ahead.
I love the green spaces and park connectors. I love the fact that we are multiracial and there's so many different cultures here. I love the young people I meet. Find that they are so driven and passionate about what they want to achieve in life and have so much to give and so much potential. There's just so many things that is not enough for me to cover.
What will you change?
I guess what I would change is really I feel that there needs to be more diversity of views in Singapore, because when we have constructive ideas, I think that would help everyone to improve.
Fully agree. Because only then you can progress as a society to actually be inclusive and to integrate many different types of views so that you can be open to different pathways and opportunities and as well for different types of people. So I fully resonate with that. Next one is if you could meet with a prominent world figure, past or present, who would that be and what would you like to talk about?
Actually, I wouldn't pick a prominent world figure.
Okay.
I would like to pick my grandparents.
Oh.
Yeah, because they are no longer around in this world.
Okay.
Tearing up.
Oh. I would say this, and I don't know if that they're always connected with you.
Okay, I need tissue.
You need tissue? Do we have tissues?
Sorry.
Can I say something? It is precisely their unconditional love for you that made you so empathetic. Do you know? And I think that is the most powerful thing in the world.
Thank you.
Sorry I made you cry.
It's okay. I made myself cry. I didn't expect this as well.
Oh, it's okay. I think it's great. You know, crying is good. Yeah. Crying is good.
Oh, I'm not the first guest who cried.
No. There are actually men who cried here before. Just didn't need a tissue.
Guy can hold back.
You're the first one who cries and need a tissue.
Yeah. So the people I would love to meet are my late grandparents who passed on. I feel that for me, losing my grandparents was a painful experience in my life because, as I mentioned, they were like my own parents as well. And I lost my grandma 1 year after I started work. That really changed my perspective on life because I realized that while work is a key part of our lives, time with family, health, loved ones, these are things that cannot be replaced. And once someone is gone, it's forever. Yeah,
I understand. And I think that's very powerful because when we have love, real, unconditional love from people in our lives, it actually stays with you and you actually carry that energy forward to other people as well. And for someone who has received unconditional love, you can never go back. And when I say you can never go back, what that means is it will define you as the person that you're meant to be and to help other people too. Because in your own way, you are actually giving unconditional love to other people too. Is there something you want to say to them?
I feel that I'm really grateful for the experience of growing up with my grandparents because that has influenced me in such a positive way.
Yeah, I can see that.
To take the love that they have given me and to give it to the society I live in, the community, and others around me as well.
Yes, that's really, really beautiful, Jeraldine. I can really see them. I can see their love in you. And I think that it will carry you really, really far in life. Keep going. If there was one common misconception that people have about you, what would that be?
I feel that because I always talk about financial literacy, building one's career, sometimes I'm seen as someone who... Sometimes people might misunderstand it as I'm just someone who cares about maybe material success. However, I feel that I'm a lot more than that. I do spend a lot of time with family and people I love. I just don't post that online because I want to protect and keep this private part of my life to myself.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes a lot of what we portray online isn't all of us.
Yeah.
Isn't every part of you that you actually put out. And which is why I like to bring people on this podcast, is because we are humans and we're all trying our best. And it does not mean that someone speaks part of their truth online, that is the full story of who they are. And I think that it is very brave of you to put yourself out there, but to also be coming here to say that that's not all of me, and that I have a much softer side to it too.
Yeah.
Because I think women, sometimes we feel like sometimes we have to be strong as well, right?
Yeah.
And be brave because you want to be seen as independent too. But you are actually a woman who is soft and nurturing too, right? Yeah. I think the last one would be, if there was one message you could give to people of your generation, our generation, the millennial generation, what would you say to them?
Everyone has something valuable that they can contribute and give to this world. Sometimes fear holds us back from living up to our full potential. So I would encourage everyone to be courageous and to share your perspectives, to use that to help other people and to add value to other people's lives. Because to you, it might be something that is mundane or something that you already know, but to someone else, it can be incredibly life-changing for them.
100%, and that's very, very powerful. I think the gift that each of us has is a gift that someone else needs to receive. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that gift in the first place. So every gift has its purpose, and every sharing has its audience as well. And I think that you have found your audience, and you will continue finding the audience that resonates with your message, Jeraldine. Yeah. So it's very brave of you, and I really respect you as a person and what you put out. It's not easy to go through the ups and downs in life, but you are strong. You are strong, and you are here for a very special reason. Thank you so much, Jeraldine.
Thank you for having me, Nicole.
I'm very grateful.